spring split was really tough for us.
G2 Esports, they stopped Fnatic in their tracks and advanced to their third split finals.
Probably one of the toughest splits I've been a part of. I don't want to be the guy who's been a part of the team when it hasn't gone that well.
Nice!
Nice.
Long live the kings of Europe, G2 Esports!
G2 is favorite in Europe. For us, it's going to be a really tough task to beat them.
Look at the damage from the spray and pray. Miffy goes down, double kill Fnatic.
Stop trying to become like this SKT of Europe and we stop playing whatever everyone else was playing.
Mana in that bag. Bam! Ignar gonna drop as well. Triple for Reckless.
That's definitely something that will make other teams fear.
Everything else happened. Flash forward for Soaz, drags the blade with him, trying to get the slows down onto Ignar as he runs for his life. Oh, we call that the dunk.
G2 har vunnit tillräckligt mycket. Det är dags för oss att visa vad vi går för.
Good afternoon and welcome to week 2 of the European LCS Summer Split. Reckless and Fnatic get their chance for revenge tonight as they go up against the reigning champions G2 Esports. That will be our second series of the day, but to kick off the week, we have Misfits Gaming taking on the Ninjas in Pyjamas, who are getting ready on stage right now as we speak. Power of Evil sitting there with Alfari up in the top lane. We'll take a look over at the NIP players. HeQ, happy birthday, buddy. Let's see what you can do today. Good afternoon and hello, everybody. I am Trevor Quickshot Henry, joined here at the Analyst desk today by Mon Deficio Lunga, and a new introduction to the EULCS broadcast. It's Henning Eklund. Henning, welcome to the desk. Tell our viewers a little bit about yourself.
Thank you very much, Trevor. I've now been ripped out of the Swedish summer, put in the dark room in Germany, locked in, and I couldn't be happier.
That was a good thing, by the way, that we locked him in that room. And now he's here with us as well on the Analyst desk.
Yeah, it has new Swedish analysts, a Swedish organization. Swedes are invading even more, Deficio.
We have enough Danes.
We do indeed.
Nah.
We do indeed. The Nordics are spreading. Let's take a look at the standings going into week number 2. Unlike the North American LCS, the top teams here from our spring split in Europe, they're off to a great start.
Yeah, and they actually played pretty well in week 1, especially the second series. We saw, like, Fnatic, Storm People, H3K as well, and fascinating to watch the good teams really perform here. We want to see more from the bottom teams.
Absolutely. I think that Misfits and NIP, they are at the bottom of Group A there, and we can see this is their chance to revenge.
Yeah.
Well, we'll find out if anyone gets it. Fnatic, they are hoping to challenge G2. Talked a lot about it. It's a hype matchup for today. Looking at that first place in Group A, where a lot of analysts have pegged them. But we'll see who's going to pick that up in our second series. To start off today, it's Misfits Gaming taking on Ninjas in Pyjamas. And let's start off the day talking about these two teams and setting up the rift. Misfits Gaming, they're looking to get on the winning track against Ninjas in Pyjamas. Both of these teams played Fnatic last week. But it was Ninjas in Pyjamas that looked better against Fnatic. So that means Ninjas in Pyjamas are the better team. Right, guys?
Well, Trevor, you're kind of right, but at the same time, the sample size is so small, you can't draw those kinds of conclusions after watching 1 week of LCS.
Well, did I ever see Misfits manage to fall behind 6,700 gold at 20 minutes, which is quite insane. Like, you really have to try to fall that far behind, where NIP, they kept it actually more even, which was fairly impressive. And let's be honest, like, one of the reasons they kept it even on the side of NIP was because of a potential new holy trinity on this team here, where you have Nagne, Shook, and Prophet, of course, the 3 guys on the top side of the map we're kind of looking at. They need to perform if NIP wants to win games.
Yeah, for sure. The key to a potential NIP victory this day is going to be that Trinity in towards the top side of the map.
He already agrees with Trinity.
I think the Trinity is a good word, but I'm not entirely sure I want to say that after week 1, though, because the performance from these players were not really... I wouldn't bunch them together. I think both Prophet and Shook looked really insecure. Invading the jungle, getting picked off, not really knowing what they're doing. Nagne, though, I was impressed. I mean, I didn't have the highest expectations, but he showed good understanding of his champions.
Well, managed to show up. So if that's how NIP win, what about Misfits? I'm going to be honest, I was disappointed. I had higher expectations for a team that placed 4th in the string splits. Yes, they had a roster substitute, but I didn't think Maxlaw was going to reset all of their learnings quite as heavily to Fisher.
Well, we know it takes time when you get a new shot caller to kind of adapt to that play style, but still, I agree. Like, it was too bad if we look at Misfits' performance. And it wasn't just the communication, it was just individual play. Like, people actually just lost lanes and got outplayed, which was very surprising.
Yeah, just looking at one of those games versus Fnatic, across the board, they were behind like 30 CS at 15 minutes. And that's not because, in my opinion, that they are bad laners or bad mechanical players. It's that their lane assignments were off. They didn't send people to the proper places at the proper times. And as you said, their macro plays seemed a bit off.
That's a surprise to me. Misfits, a team that definitely was one of the better macro teams from Spring. We talked a lot about what these two teams kind of had weaknesses in week 1. I want to look at something more positive. Who's going to win? How are they going to do it? Why do you think they're going to do it? Henning, you're the new kid on the block, so no pressure here. Who's going to win this series today and why?
Well, I talked to their manager earlier. I think NIP's got this in the bag. Okay, maybe not that easily, but I think if Nagne in the mid lane can get unlocked, he can make the plays on towards the map. If he can just escape the laning phase from Power of Evil, I think he's going to be contributing more towards his team.
I'm going Misfits.
Why, it's rocking the boat. Rocking the boat.
So, I think Power of Evil actually had a fine performance in week 1, and I think Nagne's early laning phase is a problem where Power of Evil might actually be able to get an advantage. And if that happens, Power of Evil can go to the bot lane, can go to the top lane, kind of get the team with them and snowball Misfits. Because I think NIP, they want to play fast. You know, they want to fight a lot. Misfits need a fit mid laner to kind of match that.
So we've got a split desk. A Swedish analyst going for the Swedish org. NIP, Deficio, you're looking at Misfits. Yeah, you don't have any like regionalism there. So we'll find out who is going to win. We are just about ready for another week of action in the summer split. So let's send it to our casters to get us into game number 1.
Thank you, Quickshot, and welcome to this matchup between Misfits Gaming and Ninjas in Pyjamas. I'm Daniel Dracos, joined by the one, the only, Andrew Vedius Day to cover this best-of-3 series. Vedius, I'm excited. We have a split desk, split predictions. We have Martin Deficio predicting in favor of Misfits. He's a legend. We all know him. We have Henning, the new blood, predicting against him. Yeah. NIP. And aside from the teams himself, that gets me excited, because if Deficio goes down to Henning on Henning's first day, we have a new king, folks.
Not only will Sweden triumphant over Denmark, but Deficio will lose. So many good things will happen today.
So sweet. But of course, not about that. Let's focus instead on the teams. Let's take a chance to look at the starting lineups, starting on the blue side with Misfits Gaming. In the top lane, it'll be Alfari. In the jungle, Maxlaw. Mid lane, Power of Evil, 80 carry Hansama. Their support, Ignar, and their coach, Hussein Musi.
Meanwhile, on the other side of the rift will be the Ninjas in Pyjamas. With their top laner, Prophet. In the jungle will be Shook. In the mid lane is Nagne, their AD carry Hikyu, and their support Spraddle, with coach Nico the Pico.
And of course, when we look at NIP, interesting to see how their last games unfolded. And it's always awkward because we're at this point right now where we're like, all right, both these guys played Fnatic, who didn't get destroyed as hard. But that's the thing. Fnatic are absolutely a force to be reckoned with, and this early in the season, it's interesting to see that Misfits are actually the team that kind of fell apart at the hands of Fnatic, where surprisingly NIP kept it together for such a long period of time. And I mean, we can't say there are a few moments, Vedius, where we thought NIP could bring it back.
I think what we saw last week was that for Fnatic, they made similar mistakes in both of their games, but NIP were better at punishing those mistakes than Misfits were. In part, I think that would tie into the draft, and I'm excited to see whether or not Misfits have been able to evolve their draft to fix some issues that they had in week 1.
Of course, will be interesting to see 7-11. Name of the patch. A few changes coming in. You know I'm on the solo queue. It's the same experience, but we have Kindred, Mouse, Rek'Sai, the major reworks. We'll see if any of them are going to get any attention. And a lot of small changes otherwise. But Xayah already banned out. Thresh banned out as well. Elise. He's looking like pretty standard from what we saw from the previous week. Thresh kind of the newer power pick in the squad.
Yeah, if you guys missed week 1, right now, the current S-tier picks are pretty much all the ones that are being banned on your screen. Give or take Xayah, depending on your preference. The other big ones are Zac. He is a powerhouse in the jungle. Xerxes demonstrated what he can do if you do leave that champion available. I'd be very surprised if Ninjas in Pyjamas chose to leave the big blob available, because I can guarantee you that a player like Maxlaw would more than happily pick him.
Zac is such an obnoxious champion to deal with. We saw him unleash in the Unicorns of Love match last week, and it was Well, if you haven't played against it yet, let me just tell you, you either dodge the Q or the Zac pulls you back. It doesn't matter where you go. It doesn't matter what else you do. You're getting pulled right back into the thick of the fight. Flash cooldowns. Not going to help out too much, but it will be Jace so far. Syndra as well. Wow. Kennen, Zac now left up and available. Will it be the tier 1 priority pick?
Now I wonder, Ninjas, they have to have a plan, because there was no way the Misfits were not going to first pick that Zac, so they have to have some kind of counter prepared. With Thresh gone, you have to imagine that Lulu becomes a higher priority. I've heard talks about Gragas being used as an answer, because every time he tries to slingshot in, you can just use the barrel to disengage his engagement. But that requires a lot of skill, that requires a lot of coordination, and I don't know if Ninjas and Pyjamas are quite there yet, because they are still a very new team in terms of coming to the LCS.
Of course, we'll have to see how much a week can change for both of these lineups.
Wow! No Lulu, because this is going to be a Zac Lulu now for Misfits, which is extremely strong. And sure, you get yourself the Galio, which he does have the ability to flex. We did see it coming in the middle lane for Nagne, but I am very curious about the decision making.
But you got the Galio, and Galio is incredibly powerful. We've seen it either picked and banned, I think, just about every single match thus far. Interestingly enough, Lucian locked in. We have the flex pick. Could go into the hands of the birthday boy, Hikyu. Could go into Nagne in the middle lane, but Misfits already putting together kind of a dream composition from what we've seen as far as strength in the meta goes. Rumble up against Galio, maybe not ideal to throw magic damage into the magic resistance tank, but Rumble, of course, still a massive impact champion.
They could also get Varus here too, so you have really good follow-up engage from that of the Zac. You have a huge amount of team fight value as well. We saw in Europe, especially, Varus being a big point of contention, but Ignat doing Ignat things. He's going towards the Bard. This was something that he was actually undefeated on during the spring regular season, going 3-0. It fits very nicely into his playstyle, which is that of a roaming playmaker support. You do have a fair amount of laning power, but I'm interested to see how well he will do going up against Hiku's Bard.
And more importantly, what is the Bard going to bring to the table? The support picks have changed so much in the preseason. Thresh rising to this S-tier pick. Karma, one of the historical picks that was huge priority that's fallen off so much, but now a little bit of a flashback to support metas of many patches ago. Bard being locked in so early, and I guess can never underestimate the value of that tempered fate.
Now I'm wondering what Ninjas and Pyjamas try to take off the board, because you have what will likely be a mid lane Lucian, so you're still thinking about your AD carry, and you want to maybe funnel mid laners out of the way. You could look to either do that or just ban out AD carries that you think could be a big problem. Like, I think Varus is something you need to be very afraid of, so perhaps you ban away the Caitlyn and the Ashe, and then you get yourself the early Varus pick, forcing Misfits onto an AD carry that might not be as optimal. But Misfits, they have the freedom to now pinch your jungle pool because you haven't decided to lock it in.
And this is a little concerning because we saw Shook on the Lee Sin. He was clutch coming in game 2, made a lot of plays that helped NIP stay in the game as long as they did. But game 1, it was the Kha'Zix, and there were a lot of small errors from that man that helped Fnatic snowball the lead. So potentially the right choice here for Misfits to pick or pinch that jungle pool. But now we'll see the rest of Ninjas and Pyjamas strategy. Interesting. There's the Hans Sama respect ban. Not one we see all the time, but Draven taken off the board. Maybe not so confident in their bottom lane's ability to go toe-to-toe with such an aggressive champion.
Now, Hans Sama during the regular season of Spring had his most success on champions like Varus and Jhin. Ashe was one of his worst performing AD carries. What I'm expecting Ninjas and Pyjamas to do is be like, you know what, we're going to pick the Varus, we're going to put you on an AD carry that we don't think you're that comfortable on, and that's going to try and give them a slight edge down the bottom half of the map. With the Lucian mid, you naturally have an advantage over many other counterparts, especially with Syndra taken off the board. You're expecting your opponents to pick something like an Orianna as well, so you're already looking to have that lane dominance. The thing is, this Lucian, you still haven't confirmed that it's actually in the mid lane yet, and that's the fascinating thing about Ninjas holding it to the very end.
Interesting, interesting indeed. Karma could go into the mid lane as well. Technically could be Galio too. We're in an interesting position here. The triple flex pick. Vedius, absolutely legendary. But one we're pretty confident is going where it is supposed to, is the Kha'Zix headed into the jungle in the hands of Shook. Now Vedius, you talked about Varus, you talked about Jhin, you said Ashe could be a potential weak point, but Misfits not deterred as they do lock in the Ashe for Hans Sama. Still that utility AD carry. Not going to see the hyper carry in his hands, but a very powerful laning presence.
Now, personally, I'm a big fan of Fizz in Solution. Assassins are very good into the AD carry because you do suffer early on, but the biggest fear that an AD carry will always have later is, that dude that can literally one-shot me. So that could be a possible direction, but that's not really Power of Evil's style, is it?
Well, and to be fair, we still do not know where the Lucian is going to go.
That's very true.
Victor locked in. That feels like the safe pick to me. You're going to wave clear. Yep. You're going to interact with the enemy champion as little as humanly possible. And this, if it is locked in, could indicate so many swaps.
really could. For those of you, if this is your first week watching back in the LCS, you may very well be quite confused right now, but it's okay. We're here to assist you. The Galio will be playing the mid lane. This was something that Nagne did bring out last week. It's been very prevalent over in the LCK in particular. People love having that big beefy dude in the middle lane. It allows him to roam around the map with his ulti, provide a bit of assistance, and he can usually hold his own to a lot of even big wave clear mid laners simply because of the amount of wave clear that he provides himself. And with the addition of a Jarvan, now I feel like Ninjas have provided a more reliable engage, which is what they were lacking given what they drafted so far.
And this is a terrifying spot to be if you're on the side of Misfits, because you have a Kha'Zix and you have two laners with so much CC to set him up. If we talk about that top lane triangle, you got to keep your eyes on the J4, who can provide Kha'Zix with the CC if Kha'Zix is going to provide the damage. Similar story for the Galio, but there is a Zac on the opposite side. There is a Bard, there is an Ashe, there is a Victor, there is a Rumble. Vedius, you can spell Wombo Combo a lot of ways. Whatever those 5 first letters of the champion's names are, that's how we're going to spell it today, because that is absurd amounts of power. And Vedius the fear for me, Tempered Fate, you line on 4 people. Yep. Zac comes in, charges up, hand delivers them to whoever wants to keep it.
Oh my god, the combos. This is going to be very exciting. I'm looking forward to seeing what Misfits can bring, whether or not Prophet can have a very similar Jarvan game to what he did in the Fnatic series.
Getting ready for game, you saw it on your screen. Hashtag votes, MSF win. Looking to the opposite side, hashtag NIP win. The crowd is ready. We're ready. We hope the teams are ready for the potential for wombo combos or early game snowballs or absolute upsets. Because it's game 1, folks. Misfits on the blue side, NIP on the red. A lot of potential for early aggression here. A lot of strong champions on each lineup.
And it's time to bounce. Get jiggy with it. So let's look at these compositions because it is very fascinating what we've got from Misfits. Very team fight focused. When you have Victor and Rumble, you're naturally looking at being able to group up and force these fights. When you have a Zac and a Bard and an Ashe, it's very easy to force those kind of fights. Which means that the mid-game spike is very much what we're looking for in favor of Misfits. Now for NIP, they have a little bit more of a 1-3-1 going for them. With Prophet on the Jarvan, he can definitely add a lot of teamfight value. Along with the Galio too, the resistances that he can provide on the back of that kind of an initiation means that they have a really easy time getting onto these squishy targets. But in terms of their team fighting power, Lucian, he has a very short range. He's going to struggle to get onto the backline up against that Zac. Kha'Zix, he's going to have to dive into the backline. He's a pretty squishy guy, so perhaps NIP, they're looking more to get themselves lane advantages to better set themselves up towards the later game where they're going to split up the map.
All right, now last time we cast NIP, they were up against Fnatic, so there was no way they're winning that fan vote, but it's interesting to see NIP coming back to the LCS and already having so much fan support here. And I mean, a lot of people were excited about Nagne last week, and we can't blame them. Some crazy plays coming out from this guy. But he's going to toe-to-toe with the top mid laner, a top mid laner in EU, Power of Evil. But sadly, not the most explosive matchup. There's no LeBlancs here. There's no crazy counter picks. It's just a bit of farming, bit of pushing.
You are quite right. The mid lane matchup is very much Victor presses E, Galio presses Q, and then they leave. That's the TLDR of it. The difference is the Victor is kind of forced to stay mid, and it is very interesting that he has decided to go cleanse in this matchup. When I feel like that there isn't really anything worth cleansing on the side of NIP. There's no real hard CC because knockups you can't cleanse away. As the bottom lane.
Yeah, absolutely getting destroyed here in this level 1 trades. NIP, Vedius, I don't know what they're thinking. Bard level 1 is insanely strong. Of course, Karma is as well, but Hiku and Spraddle just getting demolished in that early trade.
Yep. Usually what you want to try and do is get that early push, but as you can see, Misfits and Ignar, they are well aware of your little plan. The pushing power of Karma is great, but if you don't have the AD carry to facilitate it, then the Bard and Ashe are more than happy to go for those level 1 trades. As Ignar, he's looking for it a little bit more.
Level 2, Shook's level 2. Taking a little bit of time will help the camp reset. That is the worst possible experience as a jungle.
Oh, yeah. Aside from having your blue and red buff blind stolen from you, I would definitely.
I mean, that's a bit of a stretch, but okay, fair. Not going to see that kind of crazy action quite yet, but we look at these teams and so much confidence and aggression coming in from the Misfits Alliance. This is something that we wanted to see. Hansam and Ignar, a bot lane that we've always touted as being, you know, potentially a really strong duo, but haven't really shown it off, especially in last week and also in the playoff series.
And I think that's something that's really worth highlighting because the individual performances of Misfits was underwhelming last week because sure, a lot of question marks were, how will Maxlord do? Will he integrate well into the team? Will we see better communication? But when we actually got into game, what we saw was the bottom lane. They were struggling in a matchup that they should not be struggling in. Mid lane, Pyjamas was holding his own against Caps, but he wasn't really adding that much value outside of his big impact in teamfights. And Alfari was just dying. He was going back to his old amateur days where he was overextending, getting caught out, and giving free kills away. So coming into this week, we were wondering, will they step up? Was that just a bad week? And so far, from what we've seen of the bottom lane of Hansa and Hignar, they still have their confidence.
Definitely do, but Nagne maybe a little too much confidence. Thunderlord's procs. Bard gonna hit him with the Meep slap, but this is just obnoxious. Nagne trades back a little bit of damage. That's the worst feeling. When you know you have 0 kill pressure on a champion.
When you play League of Legends, you don't have many good feelings,
no,
my friend.
It's not a positive experience. Hansa does make it out of the Soul Flare in time, but are you telling me that a Bard walking into your lane just hitting you like 6 times is enjoyable? You're like, this is what I live for. Thank God the Bard is finally here to hit me.
It's that thing in old chat, right, where you're typing SS, question mark, and you're typing the missing pings in bottom lane. Like, why is he here? Why aren't you winning bottom lane? It's always a stressful time.
Well, for now, we can see the constant trades back and forth in the bottom lane. Top lane, pressure in favor of the Rumble. No surprises there, Flame Spitter. Makes it all too easy to push forward. Have to keep our eyes, though, on the level 6 for both sides. The Equalizer, a ton of damage, but potentially easy to avoid with the flag and drag, the Cataclysm for Jarvan.
Missed the cannon, though. It's going to put a lot of strain on him. That's a worst feeling in the game when you do miss that cannon creep. But Shook, he's doing a very reminiscent invade to what he did last week against Fnatic. It backfired for him the last time that he did it, but this time he will be able to get some good deep vision down. And look, Alfari, he doesn't have any wards in the top half of the map, but Shook deciding not to go for any ganks.
It's interesting we heard the Desk talk about how crucial it would be to unlock the mid lane, to set Nagne up for success in a similar vein. Misfits maybe not looking to let that happen, but both junglers paying a lot of attention to the mid lane. And you can see here, CS numbers, not great. Much worse for Nagne, but the big thing to note there is the kill participation on both sides. These guys were a part of just about everything for their respective teams.
Yeah, both teams really enjoy skirmishing quite a lot, especially around this mid lane in particular. And it's fascinating to see how much they integrate with the other laners. As we see Maxwell come for a gank in mid.
Nagne gonna get knocked up. There's the stretching strikes. He's gonna get pulled back into the gravity field. The taunt still lands, though. Nagne taking a lot of damage, but doesn't burn any spells. Wonderful.
Passive magic shields will mitigate a lot of the magic damage coming out from Power of Evil and Maxlord. They aren't even able to burn a summoner spell, but they will chunk out his health. But he's decided to go for an corrupting potion, so he's also got a fair amount of sustain.
That feels bad. When you land the perfect Zac ult, or Zac
literally
E,
perfect.
You get the stretching strikes, you chain your CC beautifully, and none of it matters.
But this is why he's so popular over in Korea, because it guarantees you a very safe mid lane matchup. He doesn't offer a huge amount of damage in the mid game, but he better facilitates the other laners who he's looking to rely on a little bit.
Nar. And Portal out to safety. For now, the bottom lane actually going pretty even after the early poor trades that came in from the side of NIP. Potentially the Vampiric Scepter helping out there for Hikyu. And Hansama giving a lot of respect over to this Lucian. The potential for an all-in, maybe an early level 6 on either side. We'll have to see who has the XP advantage.
And remember that the Doran Shield does assist in heavy harassed lanes. It gives you a little bit more sustain. Allows you to get those early levels, a bit of extra golds that you can get, a healthy, good first back. And now that they've been able to set up the lane in a better setup, they've actually been able to equalize the farm. So this is very good for the bottom lane of NIP. The issue they're going to struggle with is the all-in power that they have once Hansama hits level 6, because the follow-up from Maxlord could be devastating.
Definitely have to respect it either way. Whatever CC hits first, it's all too easy to get the follow-up, whether it's the Bard stun, the Bard ultimate.
Exactly.
The Zac coming in, picking him up, dropping him down wherever he wants to go. But across the board, Venia's level 6s are starting to come in, ultimates are starting to be available. It's not that point in the game where Misfits can afford the group to use their team fighting competition that you talked about earlier, but it looks like they do want to start a fight. Probably going to flash out to safety. Shook. A little bit of a slow on the Void Spikes, but the Equalizer keeps him slowed down, takes out so much of his health, and that just feels bad.
So Prophet and Alfari, they end up trading flashes, but Shook is able to get off a gank. Now, the thing is for Alfari is he can't look to push as aggressively as he was prior, because now it gives a big opportunity for Shook to come for a return gank, as both mid laners, I would talk about this, but I know nothing's going to come.
Guys, do you remember when we used to look up at top lane and nothing would happen and we wonder why we were looking at top lane? Now that's in mid lane.
Yep. Bit late.
Only when Galio's picked, and only most of the time into Victor.
Yep. If it was a Lucian mid into Galio, then it's a little bit more exciting. But, and NIP were like, haha, no, we're going to pick the Lucian. Ocean Drake is the first on the board. Doesn't look like much priority is going to be invested early on, but I think that Misfits having push priority on the bottom side, as long with Profit going in.
Oh, coming into Galio. Where's the entrance at? He is going to get knocked up. Alfari's in trouble. No equalizer. There comes Shook. That's going to be first blood dropping for NIP. Alfari throws his hands up. He knows something went wrong with the team because they're not getting anything else on the side of Misfits.
And this is a flashback to exactly what NIP did against Fnatic. They sent both Shook and Nagne up to the top side. They went for a dive with Profit to get him started. Once he was rolling, that was what gave Fnatic a lot more pressure when they were facing up against Ninjas in Pyjamas. So I'm excited. They're playing exactly the same way.
Herald's still going to connect. There goes the Zach. Oh, brings it back together. Now throwing it back in. There's a little bit of damage coming out, but Hikyu is still alive. They burned all their damage, and nobody is dead yet. Bard says time to go golden to the tower, but Nagne is buying plenty of time. This is falling apart quickly for Misfits. What are they going to be able to get back from this exchange? Hikyu, knockup comes in. Hikyu trying to dash to safety. Not enough damage. Sprado with a fancy footwork, not going to get anything out of it, but he's backing off. That's one kill back for Misfits, but they've committed so much. Look at that Jarvan on the top side. This is bad news for the side of Misfits.
And you can see Shook making his way down to the bottom lane as well. Misfits, they get themselves one kill, but that dive did not go how they wanted it to. They landed a lot of the CC, but they just lacked the damage. And sure, Zach is a great facilitator, but you need that effective follow-up. And when they went for that dive, they did not get it. So NIP, yes, they end up losing a member. Yes, their AD carry will fall behind a little bit, but Profit is going to gain so much back in the top half of the map. And
the CS finally balancing out for the Jarvan. Was at such a deficit in the early game. Now happy to find a small lead here over Alfari. NIP definitely setting the pace so far. Misfits trying to fire back, but the play just did not work out for them. And now we look across the lanes, things going quite well for the side of NIP. Misfits still have some farm leads, but just going to get harder and harder to kill that Galio, and we saw how little damage the team already has.
And now have a look, you can see Misfits, they've actually swapped their bottom lane up to the top half of the map. They don't want that tower to go down. They want to be the ones to pick up that first tower gold. So by making this swap, they can look to put pressure down onto this tower early, because remember, it was Alfari who had the push priority for the majority of this early game.
Shook has to leap out to safety, still spotted by the wards, doing his best to heal up with the Void Spikes. Sparta throws down a bit of damage here. NIP doing their best to hold on to the jungle. Misfits have made a swap to the top side of the map. Lucian left all on his lonesome there on the bottom side, and that's the Rift Herald. Misfits putting a lot of priority onto this early objective. Only 11 minutes in, Max are going to look to solo it out.
I think you can do it on Zach. You get a surprising amount of sustain. The cooldown on your W is reduced every time you pick up a blob. And look at the amount of control that Misfits have around this objective. NIP, they can't even walk near it because they only have vision to the entrances of their own jungle. And this will guarantee Misfits a very early tower. I do like the fact that NIP sent Lucian into the 1v1 against Rumble. He should more than happily be able to hold his own, especially after picking up that Cutlass. But it will mean that pressure is now on to NIP, because they're going to have to find some way of dealing with this Rift Tower, which is very likely going to come either in the top lane or in the mid.
And when we look at this series, pressure was already on for NIP. So many people had counted them out as a bottom team, doomed to just be another relegation-bound squad coming into the LCS, but surprising amounts of talent coming in from this roster. And as we look at this replay, you can see why they're starting to look like more of a force to be reckoned with.
So Hikyu has no mana, he flashes in a straight line, but the knockup doesn't actually hit. And even though both bottom lane members of NIP get knocked up, a really good exhaust from Sprado basically denies all the follow-up damage from Handsummer. Nagne with the TP in, then makes Misfits scared to continue on with the dive, and a good gravity field here from Power of Evil will result in a kill onto Sprado, but that was a really haphazard. It was so back and forth. All 5 members of Misfits were not in place to properly set it up. They didn't have the damage needed, and that allowed Profit to just get all this free damage down to the top tower.
Once again, that's part of the reason why the top tower is so low. NIP haven't broken down that tower yet, but if they get the opportunity, it should be good, easy for them to do it. And now for Misfits, this is a team we look at. They've been slumping since kind of the end of last season. We haven't seen them take control in the way that they were known for. They used to dominate the early games. They used to have so many leads, and they used to find wins so consistently, but now every early game starts to feel like a little bit of a struggle.
The impressive thing for Misfits back then was, if we looked at that same play from Misfits in spring, they not only would have gotten both kills, but they would have gotten a tower too, right? And that's just the difference that we're seeing in terms of their early game. Their ability to build leads was so impressive, and the way in which they were able to close out the games was impressive as well.
Now moving forward, Rift Herald.
Oops.
Little awkward, little awkward. The classic I'm helping maneuver from the Rift Herald. Now will be free to move on to that tier 2, but Jarvan's just waiting in the brush. Of course, the Rift Herald can be CC'd, so the Flag and Drag will work on it. No opportunity to Cataclysm, unfortunately, but will deal a decent amount of damage. Now it's Prophet who's in trouble. There comes the damage. Can they get the follow-up? It looks like yes is the answer, but Galio with the damage reduction. Korean brothers in arms, more than happy to stop that from going down. NIP responding nicely to the Misfits play. No tier 2 for the Misfits.
So the stacking of CC onto Prophet prevented him from using his Flag and Drag to be able to get out to safety. Fortunately for him, he did have Nagne on the wings with that very valuable damage reduction, but now Misfits, they have the pressure all over the map as they find a pick.
Spartle potentially in trouble. They don't have the confidence to move into Heat. Blade of the Rune King has been popped. That's the Colin coming out, doing good damage to Maxlor. They're going over the wall. There is Shook. There is Nagne. They're moving forward. They're not going to hit by the gravity field. We're looking for a little bit more. Team fight pressure comes in, but a brief pause as the ult comes out. The Tempered Fate, Maxlor trying to bounce his way out of there, but he's split into the little boblets. Misfits, they don't have the tools necessary to protect him. That's him going down. Maxlor drops NIP in control.
And it was NIP that say, we've had enough of your shenanigans. They tried to force the fight. Prophet moves in from the top half of the map to force this collapse down onto Misfits as they pushed in bot, pushed in mid, and in reality just overcommitted to trying to get too many things. NIP, they get themselves a kill, and now they're going to get themselves the first dragon of the game.
Happy to have the Ocean Drake. 14 minutes in, not quite as effective as it may have been earlier in the game, but still definitely relevant on the Kha'Zix, on the Karma, on all these champions who want to keep their mana pools up and available. But Vegas, this looks so good to start with.
The thing is, you can see that in terms of the bottom lane, pushing advantage in favor of Misfits, they have push in top, so they want to be able to push in mid, but Ignar moved in to try and get this pick onto Spartle, and they just overcommitted because now the Misfits lineup is split up and it makes it easy for Prophet to come in for the flank and get that engagement. All Misfits needed to do here was just wait, or rather be patient and group up a mid and start the siege, because the other side lanes were going to be doing damage, forcing NIP to either split up or lose valuable golden experience. Misfits, they just got a little bit too over-eager to make something happen.
We've seen this one before.
Not
Doesn't work like it did at level 2 though. Shook has enough damage to clear that one out. And Vedius, it feels like we expected team fighting coming in for the Misfits to be non-stop, but it seems like their composition just doesn't have the damage necessary to fight on their terms, and NIP are more than happy to force those counter engages.
Yeah, I love the proactivity from NIP, always trying to look for something, because as a thrown together roster, a lot of question marks like how well will they synergize? Will they be able to coordinate a lot of their plays? And it feels like that they are, in fact, very good at setting up for fights and being able to respond to any of the pressure that their opponents are throwing out. They are currently sitting on the gold lead, and Prophet is really getting to a point now that Arfari is going to start to struggle with it.
Definitely a difficult spot to be. Black Cleaver coming out, Tiamat already finished up, makes it easy for him to keep the pressure up in the waves, and now it's all the focus onto the mid lane, all the focus onto Nagne. Not enough wave clear at this stage of the game to keep the team away, and Misfit's going to grab a tower. Gold just dead on even, however.
And the thing is, for Misfits, it's very easy for them to siege when Prophet isn't around, because he is the primary engage tool. You can't really force a fight with just the Galio. You need someone else to go in. And sure, you can have Shook go in, but you really want Shook to be the primary target when there's an Ash Arrow, a Gravity Field, the Zac ultimate too. Like, there are so many things that can just interrupt him that you need Prophet to be in the fight to try and keep that tower alive.
You can hear some strong shot calling coming in. Bard on the way forward, maybe looking to get the flank off. Not going to connect the stun, though. Temper Fate goes out. It does go wide in the end. However, 4 members strong of the Misfits lineup are here, but here comes Galio. Multiple knockups. Spartle is set to fall. That's the double taunt coming in from Nagne. They don't have quite enough damage to take him down, or do they? Double kill drops for Misfits. It's the flash out for Hikyu, and suddenly it's Misfits in control. Watch the stretching strikes. Where's it going to connect? Onto Hikyu. Will he get shook as well? Not going to happen. Leaps out to safety. Misfits finally in the driver's seat.
Meanwhile, Prophet, he's just continuing to push on the top side of the map. Misfits, they are constantly grouping up as a 5-man unit. They are trying to make these fights happen, and while they are succeeding, there is no answer to this top lane menace of the Ninjas in Pyjamas.
Yeah, moving for more profits, pushing in the top side map, looking on that tier 2, but there's 2 members strong of NIP already in the mid lane. They're going to have to go through a victor if they want to get anything, and that does not deter Shook. Stealth up, move forward, decent damage. Just pushing him off the tower in the end. Prophet's taking down that. Now we can head to the mid lane if he wants. There's the TP as well. NIP are not playing around. They want to keep this fight going. Maxlor goes forward, looking to get it going. Stretching strikes comes in. Shook just goes over the wall. Let's bounce. Brings Nagne back under the towers. Pulled back in by the gravity field again. The chain CC keeping him under the tower. Does take him down in the end. They may not have the damage, but the tower sure does. Misfits hold on.
And NIP too over eager. They realized that the bottom lane of Misfits was not around. They thought that with the flash gone of Power of Evil, they could look to set up that dive, but Nagne, he did not have his flash during that setup. NIP were not properly coordinating. They had to deal with this super tanky Zac on the front line. Ninjas in Pyjamas, they got too over eager and they end up getting punished.
It's a tough spot to be, too, because you want those leads as that 1-3-1 composition. And if you start to look at Misfits, their team fight just continues to get scarier and scarier. And we look at their pick potential now.
And we can see this is just good awareness from Misfits to realize that the bottom lane of NIP were pushed up so far. NIP thought they were fine because they had the Galio, but for Sprattle, he's going to fail the flash. He thought that he could get away with the knockup, the amount of time that it would buy. Unfortunately for him, if you can't flash over the wall, you cannot get away. And then when it's 5 versus 1, it doesn't matter how tank you are as Galio. And Misfits will just continue to chase on and force a bunch of summoners away from NIP. So again, good collapse, another fight kicks off.
Keep our fight. Focus going forward. Prophet's going to leap in, try to take down Power of Evil, but he's not going to be able to do it. But the taunt comes in. Not going to save the day, but will take down the kill onto Power. Ignar running for his life. Now leap forward. The portal going to keep him safe. Hansama is untouched on the backside. Finally, they turn to give him the attention he needs, but Ignar's still alive. Maxlor is going to take down Shook. What an absolute mess of a fight.
NIP, why are you chasing after Ignar when there was an AD carry right behind you? He was just freely hitting onto Sprattle, just being like, okay, I'm just going to take this free kill. NIP tunneling so hard onto a single low health member will cost them the fight and cost them a tier 2 tower.
And we said we wanted to see more from Hansama, and well, NIP gives him an opportunity. They ignore him in the fight. He gets to dish out so much damage. Only gets the 1 kill in the end, but absolutely crucial in that last fight.
And Misfits, if history is looking to repeat itself, well, they certainly know what to do with the lead. A 21-3 record during spring. And let's just see how this fight all sets up. Remember, Power of Evil, he doesn't have his flash. So NIP, they feel confident to try and force the fight. But remember, their reliable engage tool is the Jarvan. He comes in from the flank, but a gravity field and a good ulti separates him off, meaning that he cannot get reliable follow-up from his team. They do end up getting it. Watch Hansama. Like, NIP could just turn on. He's alone. He's completely alone. Zac is clearing out wards, and NIP just completely ignore him. As a chase, they go on to Ignar, who doesn't even die in the end.
That was one of the concerns for NIP coming in. What would the communication be like? And it's just going to be another fight. We need to stop having replays if they're going to keep killing each other. Oh, Shook, you're invisible, buddy, but he's going to make it out. No one else to tether him to toss him out. Power of Evil keeps the ball rolling. Where's the arrow going to go? Just a little wide. Shook now running for safety, and Maxlor on the hunt. But Misfits definitely in control. EQ wants to go toe-to-toe with the Bard, but not going to find anything there. Shook does in the end make it out, but yet another tower drops for Misfits, and this is a massive gold lead for them. 4K. Prophet doing his best to even it up, but there's no creep wave on that bottom tower. He's going to have to walk away empty-handed.
And I feel like that if NIP want to go for all these fights, they should have drafted a different composition, because, like, just your main damage dealer is the Jarvan and the Lucian, and Lucian is just struggling so often to get involved in these fights at all. I'd love to see his damage contribution, because it just feels like the only person he can really hit is Maxlor, or he's getting ulted up by Ignar throughout the entire duration of the fight.
Because who does he hit safe, right? If you're trading with Ashe, yes, you may win that trade, but you're trading with Ashe. If you're trading with Victor, you don't win that trade. That's not how Victor works. You as an 80 carry can't afford to do that. There's also a Rumble. The short-range 80 carry just feels so vulnerable here. And it's the same story for Shook. It's the same story for Prophet. Everyone has to run face first into so much damage on the Misfits lineup.
And I feel like that they really needed to better set it for like a 1-3-1. They needed to have good vision controls through the river to be aware of when Misfits try to make these cross-map plays. Because remember, it is super easy for them with the Rumble teleport and the Ashe arrow to force a fight literally wherever they want.
And for better or worse, they have been sticking somewhat to the 1-3-1. It has been Prophet constantly in the side lane, but Prophet constantly in the side lane while his team is getting caught is not quite the 1-3-1 that we wanted to see. But Misfits definitely in control. Things starting to look pretty good for the team already. And really, when we look at it, this is the coordination we wanted to see from Misfits, the communication we wanted to see. Everyone pulling the trigger at the same time, knowing when to go in, knowing when to go forward. And really, Hansama in that last fight, throwing out the arrow to try to protect Power as long as possible. That's the level of teamwork we expected from a team that has been here before, from a team that has spent time together in the Challenger Series, and now is looking to take down Shook. Ooh, does go golden. Ignar can't set up the stun, guaranteed. But there comes the Galleon. Now it's Maxler all alone. Shook going to try to hold on as long as he can. Let's bounce. Gets pulled back in. That's the chain CC. Equalizer trying to zone the rest of the team out of the fight. Alfari trying to burn down Sparta, but Nagne is still up. Nagne is still alive. Wins the war. Come out. Power of Evil going to grab a kill back, however. Nico the Pico looking a little frustrated as yet another pick goes in the favor of Misfits.
And again, Profit isn't even there. Misfits, they have deep vision around the Baron area. They're just waiting for NIP to get a little bit too close in order for them to find that opportunity. And I love the proactivity coming out from Misfits as they look for another pick.
Shook. Portal goes over the wall. Shook trying to run for his life. That's so much damage, but Shook barely able to make it out. Hansama's hungry. Oh, you're slowed down, buddy. Now you're dead. That's going to be it. Hansama out for blood. Takes out the jungler, and that's going to mean an easy Baron if Misfits set their mind to it. Magical Journey comes over the wall. Alfari's got his sights set on a 1v1, even if the rest of the team's going to set their sights on the big purple worm.
And overall, it has been a very clean game from the side of Misfits. They've utilized their composition very effectively. The only downside you could argue is Alfari tying up in the top half of the map, but this time NIP, they couldn't run away with Profit. He couldn't just snowball the game. Misfits didn't slow down, they just kept up the pace, constantly trying to look for fights, utilizing this Ash arrow to its fullest, and this is the play style that we want to be seeing from Misfits, reverting back to what they had so much success with in spring, which is very much that let's make stuff happen, and once we get that lead, let's not stop with the pressure.
Playing a clean game, so much of what we expected from Misfits, and we're seeing it now. One of the big standouts this game so far, of course, Power of Evil, sort of as expected. And as we look at this last fight, you can see Hansama also a major factor.
And this is just a very classic Baron setup. When you want to be able to go for the Baron, you set up deep vision so that you can either go for a pick or you can rush it down because you know exactly where the enemy is. And Misfits, when they know that the enemy top laner doesn't have TP and they can very easily force a 5v4, when you have a gold advantage, why wouldn't you take that fight? Misfits with a very clean setup, and it very easily results in a Baron.
And we're curious to see what shade of Misfits we'd see after they got destroyed by Fnatic the previous week. Well, this is exactly the level of coordination we were hoping for, and NIP falling apart at it. And this is poor Shook. You know, it's just nothing you can do here.
Nope.
You either kill the Ashe or the Ashe kills you, and unfortunately when you're at that low of health, you're already done. Misfits now pushing forward. They see Profit on the bottom side. Hikyu's there as well. Two members committed to the bottom side for very little as Misfits set their sights on breaking down an inhib tower. No minions there, mean they're going to back off for at least a moment. But meanwhile, Victor is breaking in the top side of the map. Shook has to be careful. Profit leaping forward. They're trying to take down Alfari, but how much are they actually going to be able to get out of this? Alfari does have the Zonias. Stops for a moment, is going to get taken down, leaps forward, scrap shield. Hikyu taking a lot of damage back. Not going to matter too much for Misfits, though. This is a disastrous call for the side of NIP because that's going to look like two inhibitors potentially. Misfits set their mind to it, but one opened up so far and a 7K gold lead.
The only bright side I can see to this is NIP can get a little bit back. They knew that they wouldn't be able to stop the wave clear, so they thought, you know what, if we just get a tower on the other side of the map, perhaps it could result in some kind of gold influx coming back towards us.
Okay, flag and drag. Makes it to safety. That was close. And now Ignar's on the hunt. Oh, Hikyu.
I don't think Misfits should keep chasing. They got themselves
I think they should.
I
think they should, Thaddeus. I like it when teams chase.
The arrow's gone. They have the Bard ulti. They're just going to settle on the Dragon for now. The safe option. They need the win, remember. They need the win.
Absolutely do. The question was, who's going to be at the bottom? Right now, it's looking like NIP, the way this first game has unfolded. A lot of these picks really not working out. Still seeing good moves coming in from Nagne, good moves coming in from Profits, but just as many, it's kind of sketchy decisions, risky decisions. And a lot of members of NIP getting caught out. Misfits more than happy to prey on it. And it looks like their draft was perfect for exactly what NIP wanted to try to do.
I'm also not sure what NIP's answer was to this Zac, because his engagements haven't been stopped at all. Misfits have had the freedom to force so many fights, and it feels like NIP haven't been able to do anything about it other than use the Galio ulti to mitigate some of the engagement. But now we have a flanking TP from Profit.
Oh, time to see what Profit can do. Nagne has the ult up and available as well. He's going to chill. He'll chill just for a minute, though. Waiting to back out, potentially in a position to get the fight going. Waiting for Misfits to overstay their welcome.
Here we go.
Spotted on the ward. Poling comes in. Portal, trying to let the team split up. Prophet wants to leap forward. He goes in. They're going to get the ults coming in from the Galio as well. Knocks up 2 members. Kha'Zix is leaping forward, trying to get some damage down. Not quite enough. Nagne nigh unkillable as he's not being focused down by the team. But the consistent damage from Han Sama, the consistent damage from Power of Evil. They're taking control of the fight. Prophet goes down before he can finish the combo. Hikyu is in trouble. Smack back together. On the side of Misfits, they are just destroying NIP.
There's just no damage from NIP. Nagne gets into the backline, Prophet gets a flank off, but there's no follow-up from Hikyu or Shook. They get zoned out by both Alphari and Maxlaw, and this is going to be game 1 to Misfits.
All too easy at the side of Misfits. It looked pretty even in the early game, but once Misfits get a lead, they do not give it up, and we're seeing that here in our first game.
The GGs come out. It was a very clean Misfits take the 1-0 in the series. 10,000 gold lead in the end, and many successful team fights. Very impressive performance overall. But we have to backtrack. Like, this draft from NIP, just many a question mark. Why would you go for the early Lucian? Like, the Galio kind of makes sense against the Zac, because when he tries to engage, you then counter-engage with the Galio. But then, I feel like he would have been better suited up top lane. Put Nagne on something that he had a lot more success with last week.
And I can see how this might work out if they get a lot of leads here, but this is an awkward moment where you try to counter-engage and you look at the enemy team and you go, they have an Equalizer. They have a Victor. With every Victor ability in his kit, they have an Ashe. If they engage on you and they haven't burned everything, they still counter-engage better than you do. You can't get cut in the Equalizer, the Chaos Storm. There's just not enough MR items in the game to stop these champions from doing damage. Even the Galio gets whittled down in so many of those fights.
And for context, to be fair, the damage dealt by Lucian was still reasonable, but it was almost similar to that of Galio. And now Galio does hit pretty hard, but that's not really who you want to be your main carries, as Victor was shredding through a number of the enemy team.
Yeah, it's just the team fight power of Victor. He's that free lane. He gets to farm up. Galio gets to farm up. But when you can't utilize the Galio to get leads, to reliably get those kills, it feels like it sort of just falls apart.
And for Misfits, execution still needs a little bit of work. However, their communication seemed better. The fact that they're willing to make plays. The fact that they're set up around things like the Baron. There were a lot of good signs for Misfits. And after their week 1 performance, I think Misfits fans will be happy after what they've seen.
Definitely ought to be. Well, Misfits Gaming want to get back to their early spring form and got a good start for the series. But for more on that, let's send it over to the analyst desk.
Thank you very much. Yes, I mean, interesting start to the series. It felt like NIP came to fight. They landed a couple jabs, a couple punches. The problem is, for every jab that connected, they took an uppercut and a haymaker to the face, because Misfits just outfought them what felt like all game long.
Yeah, I think actually only very early in the game did NIP get like a small advantage. We can actually just pull up that replay instantly, because that's kind of why we talked about the top side being the important thing for NIP. Because when they go for a play like this one here, when we actually also just pause the replay, you can see an interesting thing, because it's obviously gang up with Galio ulti, you then have the guy retreating to his tower, and then you have Shook coming from the bottom side, and together that creates
the Holy Trinity.
The Holy
Trinity.
The right there. And this is basically how NIP tries to get an advantage, because whenever they do something with the rest of the team, they're completely lost on the map. Like, completely lost.
I think that's a good point. They tried to set up the place. They were able to pull it off. I think the bot lane, though, at the same time, Hikyu started Doran Shield and still used both of his potions level 1.
Yeah, that was
They were just getting pushed in under tower, really not having much presence at all. So while the top trio try to make plays, I'm not sure what NIP are trying to do with their bottom lane.
Probably not a whole lot. And that's kind of the issue for them when you... Like, I don't want to just blame the bot lane, because they obviously got ganked, you know, and they got kind of drove a few times. But a team fight like this, Henning, they have to be able to execute.
Yeah, this says a lot about the game, because these are two team comps, two teams that likes to go for the brawls, likes to fight each other. And the Jarvan ulti here is good on towards Power of Evil. They are able to burst him down. But you can see that Misfits don't even have Alphari in the fight. It's a 4 versus 5, and they're still able to pull this off. Great play from Egnar and Han Sama, just putting out the consistent damage.
Yeah, and at this point in the game, Power of Evil had 4 kills on Victor. Yeah?
I'm glad you mentioned Power of Evil. 4 kills on Victor. He ended up going 7, 1, and 5. And you said Power of Evil was going to have the favorite in this match to help Misfits win. But you said Nagne could shut him down. What went wrong, Henning?
Well, I think in a lane like this, Victor versus Galio, it's just going to come down to the farming mainly. No one's going to go at each other and get a huge advantage early on in the laning phase. It's going to come down to who can contribute in the team fights. And while we saw flashes of brilliance from Nagne with the Galio ultis, they weren't quite on point. And I think the big difference was just the team fight execution, not the laning phase.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Also because when you pick Galio mid, you kind of rely on some of the other members in your team to then become carries, which is really hard for NIP to kind of execute. And I think overall, there was just some questions with the draft. You know, like you take the Galio mid into the Victor, so you give Victor a free lane. You then pick the Jarvan against the Rumble, so Jarvan gets pushed early top lane. And you have the Lucian against Ashe bot lane, which is also a lane where you get pushed in. So basically every lane
Lots of questions.
And of course the jungler.
How do you let Zach through?
Yeah, for sure. If there's one champion that you're going to be watching on through the laning through the pick ban phase, it is going to be that Zach. And I'm not totally against leaving it up if you have a plan. If you have a plan on how to counter him out, I think that can be a decent choice, but then just leaving him up and not knowing how to deal with it. Gotta say I like the Jarvan though. It was a good adaptation to send the Galio mid and pick the Jarvan against the Victor and an Ashe, 2 carries without any sort of mobility space.
It could be, but Prophet hit people without flashes. Let's jump to the final replay. It is, of course, the last team fight where a pretty good magical journey allows Misfits to escape.
Yeah, I just love how it actually gives Hansama a way out, because he had no flash in this fight, and Prophet flanked him. So if Prophet waits at the end of the portal for him, well, he doesn't enter the fight. And if he then goes around the corner, as we saw earlier, well, then Hansama just takes the portal, and it actually means no one dies instantly, and Jarvan comms are always like shotgun comms, like a lot of burst damage up front. Once that burst damage is gone, you don't really have a lot of follow-up damage with this comp.
Yeah, exactly. I think that Jarvan-Galio combo really worked out well. They were able to put down the CC on multiple people, but as you said, the Bard portal from Negnar led Hansama away from that fight, and the Ashe just being able to lay down the damage throughout the fight when NIP have been picking up magic resist instead of armor. That was crucial. Well,
Henning, we're just about to go to an ad break. I'm going to give you the opportunity to change your vote. Do you think NIP can actually win a game, or is this 2-0 Misfits?
There's no doubt in my mind, NIP will come back from this. Come on. I changed my prediction.
Right, I love that. I love that. Okay. Sticking with it. Okay. Misfits Gaming, they are looking for their first win in the summer split. We'll see if they can get it when we return.
The crowd is ready.
Really good ending.
We're ready. We hope the teams are ready for the potential for wombo combos or early game snowballs or absolute upsets. Because it's game 1, folks. Oh, coming into Galio. Where's the entrance at? He is going to get knocked up. Alfari's in trouble. No equalizer. There comes Shook. That's going to be first blood dropping for NIP. Alfari throws his hands up. He knows something went wrong with the team. Shook going to try to hold on as long as he can. Let's bounce. Gets pulled back in. That's the chain CC. Equalizer trying to zone the rest of the team out of the fight. Alfari trying to burn down Sparta, but Nagne is still up. Nagne is still alive. Winds of War come out. Power of Evil going to grab a kill.
He gets zoned out by both Alfari and Maxwell. This is going to be game 1 to Misfits.
All too easy at the side of Misfits. It looked pretty even in the early game, but once Misfits get a lead, they do not give it up, and we're seeing that here in our first game.